Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. I can see a couple of people are already here for today's discussion. Thank you very much for joining this um, dialogue session. And a big welcome to everyone once again um, on behalf of the West Africa Civil Society Institute, WACSI Node Nigeria, and WACSI's Executive Director, Dr. Nana Afajinu. I'm delighted to welcome you to this edition of the West Africa Policy Dialogue Series, the WACPODIS Dialogue Series. So our focus today is on a theme that resonates deeply with Nigeria's democratic journey, right? Building trust in the age of misinformation, the role of civil society in fact-based public discourse. Like we all know, misinformation is no longer a marginal issue. It is now one of the most potent forces undermining democratic governance and civic trust worldwide and inclusive of Nigeria. In Nigeria, its impact has been particularly visible. During the 2023 general election, fact-checking organizations such as Dubawa, Africa Check, and Fact Check Up, documented a sharp rise in fabricated news stories in terms of deepfakes and impersonation accounts. All of these narratives not only distorted debates, but were actively used to discredit political opponents, to delegitimize electoral processes and incite tension among ethnic and religious groups, right? So it's a huge concern for Nigerians in particular. So a typological analysis by Dubawa, I think that was covering about 127 fact-checked claims, revealed an extensive prevalence of misinformation with over 17,000 and I think above interactions on X, that's the former Twitter, and also 4,400 on Facebook during the February 25th election alone. So you can see how magnanimous these numbers are, and the numbers are still on the uprise. So this trend is not limited to elections alone. Public health misinformation has also thrived in Nigeria. If we all could remember during the COVID-19 pandemic, there were conspiracy theories about vaccines and the origin of the virus circulated widely, often spreading faster than, verified health information in both the rural and the urban communities. Um, Similarly, in terms of insecurity, in the Northeast and the Northwest, it has exacerbated by sensational or inaccurate reporting on social media, which has deepened fear and eroded community trust, and in some cases also provoked and escalated violence in these regions. So these developments, have they all have profound implication for civil society. And that is the reason why we are here today. Firstly, they weaken the public confidence in CSOs themselves, as narratives of, doubts and suspicion, they spread online. And secondly, they complicate policy influencing, which is one of the mandates for civil society in Nigeria and also globally at large. So because, debates shaped by falsehood are harder to shift with evidence and reasons. So, and thirdly, they risk shrinking civic space if regulatory responses such as internet shutdown or restrictive legislation, undermine freedom of expression rather than fostering open dialogue. Um, but yet, amidst all of this risk, civil society remain among the most trusted actors in Nigeria, and we all can attest to that fact. According to Afrobarometer's round 10 survey in 2024, if I'm not mistaken, yes, 2023, 2024, trust in elected officials remains very low, while the confidence in civil society organizations through fragile intervention is still higher compared to political institution, which calls for at least there is hope in civil society in Nigeria. So this trust combined with civil society's long-standing community presence, makes civil society a vital actor in countering misinformation and promoting truths and defending democratic values in Nigeria. So this conversation we will be having today, this dialogue is therefore a timely one. Um, it is an opportunity to interrogate the trend and drivers of misinformation, to explore practical tools and strategies for countering this misinformation, and also reflect on policy and advocacy opportunities for building a more resilient civic space. I always classify civic space most times, both the physical and also the digital civic space. So in terms of both the physical and the digital civic space, one thing stands, the fact that misinformation stifles the opening of the civic space is a huge concern. So above all, it is a chance, this dialogue session is also a chance to, reaffirm civil society's role as a bridge of trust between the citizens and the institutions. So without further ado, we're privileged to have an excellent panel with us today. We have people spanning from the area of journalism, from to digital innovators and civic leaders right here with us to have and push forward this conversation we'll be having today. So they will be helping us to unpack these dynamics and chat way forward, right? So I encourage everyone to listen, to engage and also to reflect as the insights shared here, will not only enrich our collective understanding, but also strengthen civil society's ability to safeguard the truth and protect democracy, and also to rebuild the trust that we have in Nigeria. So without further ado, let me quickly introduce our panelists for today. So first on my list is Yusuf Liadi Abiodun. Yusuf Liadi Abiodun is the Executive Director of iLead Africa, and I'm sure Yusuf is here. A quick profile about Yusuf. Yusuf Liadi Abiodun is the Executive Director of iLead Africa and also the founder of the Be the Change initiative. He is a civic innovator. He develops civic tech tools such as the iMonitor app, the Parliament Tracker, and Civic Paddy AI to strengthen democracy and youth engagement. He has trained thousands of young Africans in advocacy and innovation. Globally recognized, is a US Department of State CEE mentor, a Young Global Changer awardee, and the 2025 nominee for the Tolberg SNF Eliason Global Leadership Prize. So join me as we welcome Yusuf to join us also for this conversation. So the next on my list is Lois Ugbede. Lois Ugbede is the assistant editor at Dubawa, Nigeria. Lois Ugbede is a journalist and a researcher who currently serves as the assistant editor of the verification and fact-checking project of the Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development, that's CJID, Dubawa, Nigeria. Over the last 5 years, she has written over 300 fact checks and media literacy articles on various topics from politics to the economy, security, elections, and technology, with a special interest in health. So join me as we welcome Lois to the panel. The next on my list is Samuel Folorunsho. Samuel Folorunsho is the founder, Legis 360. Samuel is a civic innovation leader and founder of Legis 360, a civic tech organization advancing legislative transparency and open governance. He has pioneered the use of artificial intelligence, that's AI, data analytics, and digital platforms to expand citizens' access to legislative information. With expertise across West Africa, he has trained civil society organizations on digital advocacy, election monitoring, and risk-based approaches, and has consulted for organizations including the UN Women, ELOC Kenya, and New Sierra Leone. So please join me as we welcome Samuel Folorenshaw to the panel. The next and the last on my list uh, is Ekutosi Cynthia Oke. Ekutosi Cynthia Oke is the founder, Digital Witch Supports Community. I love that name in person. Digital Witch Supports Community. So she is known as Digital Witch. Interesting. She's a Nigerian tech educator, customer success manager, and DevOps engineer. She's the founder of the Digital Witch Support Community, which has empowered over 70,000 Africans with digital and remote work skills. Our work promotes tech inclusion, remote empowerment, and gender equity, recognized by leading Nigerian media. She is also a Tony Elumelu mentee with a vision to connect Africa's digital workforce to global opportunities. So thank you very much um, for joining us, Ekutosi Cynthia. And I look forward to having insightful conversations with every panelist here today. So let's quickly delve into some of our questions for the panelists. So without further ado, I will be starting off with Yusuf Liadi Abiodun. So, Mr. Yusuf, your profile is quite extensive and enormous, developing civic tech tools and all of that. So, in terms of misinformation, right, in Nigeria, and I know you've worked within the space for quite a couple of years now, you've developed tools like the iMonitor and the Parliament Tracker. So, my question to you, and most importantly, the audience listening would like to know how can civic tech solutions combat misinformation effectively? Um, if you are on here, you can pick it from there. Thank you, Mr. Yusuf.
All right, thank you so much, Abayomi, and good morning, everyone. As rightfully introduced, my name is Yusuf Liad Abiodun, and I'm working with iLead Africa, a leading civic tech organization that leverage on digital technology to empower citizens and promote their participation in democratic governance. Straight to the question, I think you are done justice to the background of the discussion of today, and the topic is well uh, timely. And I think I would like to commend your team for putting this meeting together. When we look at the misinformation from the earlier age, we will discover that it's within a community from maybe you pass the information or wrong information to another, and it's quite slow to get to the other stage. Like if you are using you are whispered the information to someone within a community, before it's spread, it takes time. But with the assistance of the digital tools, and now we are talking about the artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and other digital technology, it has helped us to, those that want to spend the misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation to leverage on that to quickly achieve their aim. And I think for many years now, we have been working in majorly to encourage citizens to participate in democratic governance, and we have a different experience when it comes to the feedback from the citizen, especially on the issue of misinformation. We have been in a community when, with the intention of train them and empower their youth. And unfortunately, what we are getting from is the perspective, or maybe a kind of information they have ahead before we get there, that most civic actor, they just went to the community to take picture and use it to get grants, to get funding. It has been a quite challenge, and it's affecting not only the political space, it's also affecting the civic space. However, we cannot overemphasize the effort of the young people. We also need to acknowledge that they are the center of all these issues. They are the center of all these issues, starting from the virality. They believe much in getting the information that want to go viral than looking at the impact it's making in the society. But on the other hand, they are also the front of coming up with initiative that counter the disinformation, and it was quite amazing to have a different platform. You mentioned about the iMonitor, which actually purposely built to empower the people at the marginalized community to have access to the information about the project that's going on in their community, and how they can be part of it, how they can monitor it and use it to make an informed decision whenever they want to elect their leader rather. And the parliament tracker serve as a legislative tracker. The legislative assignment, it's a big entirely, and I think we realize that we pay less attention to that when it's come to holding the legislator accountable. We focus more on the executive, the president. The people want to know what their president is doing, what their governor is doing, and they pay less interest in the legislative side, and they have a lot to over, because if they don't approve a particular project or a particular budget or policy, it even be difficult for the executive to implement. So we are shifting the mind of the people by first bridging the gap between the information coming from the National Assembly and their state assembly, and then they have the direct source to the information that are coming from the National Assembly, not what they hear from the online or what they see on social media. Most time, the information from the social media, most especially, it may not be adequate and accurate, because it depends on the source of that information, or let me say, the handle of that information. When I hear something now and I want to post it, but I think about the engagement I'm going to have on my platform, I can add it or twist it to my own taste, or to what I think my audience or my follower want to hear. So because I need engagement, I'm not thinking about what the impact that information is going to have on the long run, and who the information is going to be affected by, through my own tweet or the information I'm putting out. So, like I said, and on another organization, we have a Fact Check AI by the Brain Builder, which actually serving the purpose of fact checking the information. And you mentioned about the Duba from the CGID. But I think what are we mostly spot on is I think this is a time to articulate all this effort. A lot of there's siloed activities is ongoing, siloed effort, but we need to articulate it so that we'll be able to track the impact. And at the end of the day, we can speak with one voice and achieve our aim. If the ILIT is building a project that actually relates on the misinformation, like the parliament tracker now, we don't need to build a new fact check platform. We can embed the Dubawa or fact check from the BBYY on our own platform. So we don't need to build the new one. So if we can work together, enhance the collaboration and partnership among ourselves, and speak with one voice, and we also see this fight as the collective fight, not an individual effort, not what a one organization can actually address alone, I think we'll be able to make more impact. So, yeah, we'd like to stop here for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf. I mean, well spot on and well outlined. You gave an insight to all the tools that has been developed by your institution, and in particular, what's a huge takeaway for me is, in terms of the civic tech tool bridging the gap. It stands as a liaison between the information received and also the information that is being passed across. So that civic tech tool serves as the liaison and also bridge the gap for information dissemination. Thank you very much for that. So quickly, I'll go to my next panelist, Lois. Um, so before I go to Lois, something keeps, coming to mind, and every time we talk about misinformation, we cannot but as well talk about disinformation. We can't but talk about malinformation. We can't but talk about fake news as well. And as at the same time, we also have this discussion around countering each of this. How do we counter? How do we, stop, or perhaps reduce the effects in the long run of all of this? But let me quickly go to Lois. Lois, so my question for you would be, from your experience, you've worked in Dubawa, or rather you are working in Dubawa. From your experience, what are the most common misinformation trends that you have seen in Nigeria today? Over to you, Lois.
Thank you very much, Bayomi. So I would say, like Yusuf has said and highlighted some of the issues which you have also done in the background. Misinformation, I would classify them in basically 4 or 6 categories, the current ones we have. They're either political, these ones are seeking to either tarnish politicians, their parties, or the electoral body. We see health disinformation or misinformation that tackles initiatives, whether it's a vaccine or that trends when an outbreak happens or there's a pandemic. And we also see economic claims around. That's where we have phishing and the scams that come in, where they tell you to do this, you can make money and all of that. We also have misinformation that will come in the form of AI-generated content, deep fakes, shallow fakes. Today they are getting smoother. We are having audio clips, video clips that are so believable, and it's dangerous because these things, people are finding it hard to differentiate between what is real and what is not real today. We've seen weird broadcasters, popular broadcasters, like Sheung, and of other platforms that are used to promote fishy platforms. And because they are known fishes and there are several clips of them online, it's easy to create shallow or deep fakes of them promoting an idea or a product or a brand when they were not even part of that as well. We've also seen an influencing part of it that is affecting the health as well, where health influencers like a Pro doctor, bearded doctor, and all of that are being used or still under the deepfake part to sell narratives or promote products that they would naturally or normally not promote. But because these are faces people will regularly see on the internet dishing out health information, they will buy into whatever that video or deepfake is saying they are promoting. So a lot of these are some of the types of misinformation and disinformation we encounter. We are also seeing coordinated behavior where things are being promoted intentionally. When I mean this is where we are now seeing the promotion of military government in African countries, promotion or portraying Traore as the savior of Africa. We are seeing a lot of, I mean, remember the last end bad governance protest where we saw Russian flags and all of that. This is this type of disinformation is what we call FIMI, foreign information manipulation, where people or states or group of individuals are investing heavily into controlling the local narratives in an environment, whether a state, a nation, or even an entire region for whatever reason they might have. So these are some of the types of misinformation that we deal with. And as they evolve and vary, we need to tackle them with different methodology. Before now, we would do quick checks and, just do your quick Google reverse image search and do all of that. But this is advancing, and we also would need to evolve to be able to tackle them. As much as we would want to, some of these problems are becoming problem you cannot tackle spot on. Problem you will need to do deep research into, plan for ahead project and make strategic plans to tackle. Sometimes these investigations will come up afterwards, but they are able to give us some understanding of what the problem is and why they spread as much as they do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lois. Spot on with the examples in terms of the political, the health, economic claims, and AI-generated content. Before I move on, and I would like to also, cite out some common examples of misinformation news in Nigeria. And I'm very sure most of us would understand from this context. So during the COVID era, COVID-19 false cures, when there was a claim around, there was a post that claimed COVID-19 was a hoax, and that herbal remedies and saltwater gargles could cure the virus. While in reality, these claims, they spread widely on WhatsApp, on Facebook. That's also undermined public health measures and also vaccine intakes. Because people then said, oh, why then would I take vaccines if I can just use salt water to bathe? I could remember then, the old women and the old men then would pour salt into water and they start using it to bathe themselves, saying they are purifying themselves against COVID. A huge concern. And that's what Lois just mentioned in terms of the health sector. And also going into a little bit political now, Aisha Binani's victory speech in 2023, right, where there was a claim around the APC candidate, that's Aisha Binani, was declared the winner of the Adamawa governorship election. Gave an acceptance speech, not just proclaiming or saying she was the winner, but there was an acceptance speech that was given. But in reality, the declaration was illegal. The REC, INEC, that's the resident electoral commissioner, had no authority to announce the results, right? INEC later came and nullified it, but the televised speech, misled millions of Nigerians. So just putting some few examples of misinformation news in Nigeria. But quickly, let's go to our next panelist. I'll come back to that anyways. I'm going straight to Samuel Folorunsho, who is the founder of Legis 360. Samuel, I know your vast knowledge around legislative processes, elections, democracy and governance, and all of that. So my question to you, Samuel, would be, how does misinformation affect legislative processes and public trust in governance? Let me take that again.
Okay, thank you very much, Yomi, and it's a pleasure to be here, and well done to the WACSI team for putting this together. First of all, just to give you a bit of background as to why misinformation first is festering within our ecosystem and why it is difficult to fight, is because first of all, the trust deficit is already low, and misinformation around politics, around legislative transparency has become heightened, especially during election period, during campaign seasons. And we tend to see it more and more. And AI, the advent of artificial intelligence and digital platforms are now fueling this, and now making it more faster to produce, more easier to disseminate at such a great speed. But it's telling on the other part of our socioeconomic, it has a very large socioeconomic impact, even beyond how it affects the legislature or how it affects governance, for instance, because it's first, on the part of the citizens, it reduces participation because it automatically just deter, people just be like, oh, these people are not doing anything, they are all liars. and people just don't participate. So it sort of promotes what we call self-censorship within this public and within the citizens. So misinformation there, and we have to also understand the pattern for misinformation. There are something they will call, so how are these things brought to the fore? Sometimes this misinformation are just there to confuse the actual facts. So there might actually be a news that is correct, that is fact, but you see some bad actors put out information just to confuse some sections of the public, just because it's far. And we've seen how these things play. They could come in ethnocentric manners, they come in religious manners, just because these are the social cultural beliefs that Nigerians already have. So if you, to go back to your question of how it affects the legislature and governance, it's first participation. First, secondly, weakened trust. We've seen how if you literally just do a simple sampling and go to platforms like INEX, Twitter handle, anytime they post something, majority of the comments are either it or people saying they don't have trust in the institution. And that is what misinformation generally has caused and how it has affected our trust in governance. And but to the legislature itself, the legislator also are complicit in why misinformation has thrived so far, and that is because lack of transparency and lack of open data to what they are doing. So because, and I also say this, to fight misinformation, first on, you don't have to leave information to be interpreted. When an institution doesn't communicate directly to the public, when an institution does things and it has to be a third party that relay those information to the public, misinformation is bound to happen. So if, as an institution, and this is just an advice to governance institutions and legislative institutions, is that if you prioritize communicating directly to the public, and that is communicating timely and communicating effectively, you tend to reduce the impact and how people misinform and take your messaging and retwist it for what did not happen. So that is it. So the impact of misinformation actually is great, and we are beginning to see to fight, like it's almost like now like a generational battle. We have election turnout, voter turnout continue on a continuous decline for the past 5 elections, and it is crazy because there is no how we want to fight this. We are still, civil society are still grappling on how do we get people involved, how do we reduce voter apathy. And you can begin to say, especially because if people don't participate in these processes, how do they believe the outcome? So which has gone into the entire governance process. People just automatically believe that legislators are in National Assembly and they are not participating. They don't do anything other than to share money. But if you work within the space and within the assembly, like we do with Legis 360, you tend to say the case is not always so. Why there might be bad actors, why there might be representatives that are not committed to serving their constituents. But there are some of them that are actually doing the work and they are putting up the foot. But because the communication channels are not clear, if you look at the official platform for the National Assembly now, which is nas.gov.ng, you can barely find any relevant or timely information on such platforms. So it is first, as much as we say misinformation, is what are the gaps that we need to close first so that we can reduce some of these concerns that we have. And there's something was between the Jonathan and Buhari elections where there was a lot of noise around Cambridge Analytica, how it was used to. And I'm just saying the science behind some of these things. There are some things we called psychography. Some misinformation are just there to change your entire perspective, because we now see campaigns around that encourage people that what if we vote, it doesn't translate to anything. That is some form of misinformation and disinformation campaign, because you not voting is a way of participating. So it might actually be the people that won the election that propagate those kind of misinformation, because they know if we can popularize this, make sure this section of Nigerians did not participate in this voting, while we use backdoor to encourage our own constituents to vote for us, we will win. So we have to always see it in those dynamics, and it is a bigger trend until we begin to unpack this thing. And which we have to start doing a more of civic education and media literacy around this, because it's not enough to fact check. And with the advent of technological tools, we can see that false news spread faster. Before you could go fight some of these news, before you could do your own fact checking, before you could put out your own counter narratives, this information have spread to the grassroots via WhatsApp. WhatsApp is one of the most biggest platforms for spreading misinformation and disinformation. And why it's so powerful is that you can see, because it comes directly from somebody that you know, somebody that you've interacted with. So you tend to believe it. You tend to listen to these things and consume it firsthand directly from somebody you know. So it is the dynamics is kind of wide, and the how it affects parliament across in Nigeria, even in state assemblies. You tend to believe it. A lot of people believe it because these parliament, state assemblies, national assemblies don't communicate first. So it has reduced how people trust the process. And there is also not enough civic education around the process of these institutions. So what are the clear guidelines for institutions? Are they out there? So because people don't even have what to fact check against as a normal citizens. If I see an information, you don't even have platforms to fact check against. Yes, platforms like Dubawa are doing amazing work. Platform like BBYD, my AI fact checker, are doing amazing work. But you still need to platform like the CDD Ghana, CDD Nigeria's platform are doing amazing work around fact checking. But we still institutions need to learn to take ownership of their own communication, so that they will be able to reduce this trust deficit, at least communicate directly to the public, so that rumor mongers, misinformation, and bad actors are not going to have any opportunity to twist these narratives.
Thank you very much, Samuel. Well spot on. So many takeaways from what you've mentioned now. One key one for me is the communication, timely communication, and also in terms of media literacy and civic education. Thank you very much for spotlighting that. And that even reminds me of, the election-related fake results and conspiracies during Nigeria's 2019 and 2023 general election. There were claims and viral graphics and posts falsely declaring winners in various states before the official announcement. Other alleged riggings with fabricated evidences, they were all on social media at then, even on WhatsApp. You could even see then the older ones, the old men and old women. Technology has just made things so easy these days. Information flies fast and just like wildfire. So people get these informations firsthand on WhatsApp, and you see they start spreading it out, spreading it across. Oh, there is this, there is that, there is this. But the reality is these narratives, they just fuel tension and mistrust within the Electoral Institute as at then in 2019, 2023, and the electoral process at large. So thank you very much for spotlighting that. Really, really helpful. So quickly, let me go to my fourth panelist, Cynthia. Cynthia, my question to you, you are the founder of Digital Witch Support Community. You are a digital mogul. And I doff my cap for you for that. So in terms of digital literacy, like Samuel highlighted previously, we all know that digital literacy is key to fighting misinformation, right? So from where you sit, what gaps do you see in Nigeria? And how can we close these gaps in terms of digital literacy? Over to you, Cynthia.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. And just like you said, from where I'm sitting, I would rather say that a lot of people, especially the youth, are trying their best. But when you go out there, especially the social media, Twitter, TikTok, or even the televisions, what we see is totally different from what is encouraging. Sometimes you see the youth, they really want to, use all the available resources around them in terms of tech to adjudicate for themselves and also for the environment But, when you try to do this from your little side and you see other people you look up to, kind of shying away from their responsibility, or like my father always say, some people is more like where benefits. You see somebody that you are beginning to look up to, that the person is making sense as in the tech space, on social medias, and the next day the person is saying something different, and that kind of gets you confused. You don't know if you are right, or if you, and considering the insecurities in the country as well, everybody is currently trying to play safe. It's not like you don't know the right thing to say, you don't know the right way to act, you don't know who to call out. You probably know who to call out, but you are scared. And sometimes I feel that removing tech from the scene and just looking at the political aspect of how things are happening, I feel that these people use all these insecurities and other form of subjugation to subdue us and make you be scared of any of you. I remember during the last election, and a lot of people were saying, just look at US. People can actually see how people are voting, how the whole state are voting, who is leading, who is not leading, and you can see the transparency. But you cannot argue about that when it comes to Nigeria, right? And these are some of the things that I have tech friends that can build a system that will make these things very, very transparent to everybody. But then they won't employ them. And at the end of the day, when you hear the amount of money that's been invested in the whole elections and the whole campaign, you'll be wondering, what are they using this money for? Are you using Nigerian money to campaign for yourself? Are you using Nigerian money? Like, I really do not understand, because at the end of the day, I don't see the benefit of all the money or um all the budget that they are allocating to elections and all of that. There is nothing technical. There is no digitalized form of election. There's nothing. It's more like, when you want to go for census, everybody just stand on the line and you are counting. That's how I feel. And that also took me back to one of the elections I experienced when I was serving in Bayelsa. I think that was maybe 2016. I was serving in Bayelsa, and they used us as COP members to conduct the election. And that was like my first experience engaging in an election, both in voting and seeing how this work in real time. And until this moment, I'm still traumatized. I'm traumatized based on what I saw. Like, normally you see people say, "Oh, I'm voting for is it PDP? I'm voting for the." Sometimes they use the logo and all of that to differentiate each party. But what I observed that day is people were voting for just 1,000 naira. When somebody comes to vote, they say, okay, Oga Siame, now PDP I voted. And they will show you what, then when you want to vote, we were told that don't show people what or the party you're voting. But for these people, they will vote, they will show you who they voted, and they'll collect their 1,000 naira. And to me, I keep asking, are you selling your 4 years experience for 1,000 naira? Well, these are some of the things we observe, but you can still not say much. Then when it comes to the internet, like the other lady spoke, a lot of things is currently happening that even the tech guys are also sitting in their own little corner, contributing to the whole quagmire, in the sense that we now have ChatGPT generated images. We have the AI video and other kind of content creations. And who are the people engaging in these tech guys? And at the end of the day, these informations or videos can also be misleading. And like I said, it's not like these people cannot create something that can help the society, but you are scared. I know a lot of people that would want to speak up or that have spoken up, and somehow just see them go into depression. And I do not want to probe for that, because I know what happened. Because once you try to speak up, is either somebody is threatening you or somebody is trying to buy your conscience over, and a lot more. Then also, in as much as information are being disseminated via tech, like the WhatsApp that someone mentioned, it's not everybody that have access to this information. Let's be realistic. Most of us came from villages, and once you enter your village, even the more internet you are managing, you are cut off. So those of you in the town might think that you have access to the the right information, the right the forums to join and so on. But there are lots of people who are not part of this world. Like what they do is based on, let's just say, word of mouth. If somebody that is a little bit exposed tells them, oh, this is the right person to vote, this is the right way to go, this is what is happening, no matter how this message have passed through several media and lost its potency, they will just take whatever that person said, hook, sink, and nail, and that is that. If they say, oh, like, there's this game that Big Brother played, Big Brother, the reality show played, I think that was last week, and it has to do with the way information travels. They gathered everybody, one person tells you something, then you pass the same information to the next person, and that's how this information will be traveling until you get to the last person. And to be sincere with you, before this particular information got to the last person, they were saying, and like that, like that, like that, like that was never part of the information that was, like Big Brother gave them to part of the gist. It was never part of the gist. But at the end of the day, this is how the society works. Now, looking at the only channels, like the TV channels that many people expect to, disseminate the accurate, the right information, most of these TV channels are actually owned by these people. So you wouldn't want to buy the fingers, or the hands that feed you. So they kind of doctor whatever is being said to the public. So, for instance, I can't even remember the last time I watched NCA or watched, because at the end of the day, what they are saying is totally different from what you are saying on the internet, from those that probably had a first-hand experience. They are not reporting the real thing. They are not reporting the accurate numbers. And they kind of make all these things look so so small that at the end of the day, you keep asking yourself, is this country worth fighting for? Is this country worth, investing all your energy, your resources that you should be using to feed yourself, the resources you should be using to feed your family? Is it worth it? Then you look at those that have tried what you are trying to do, those that have invested their time, their youth, and everything to serve the country. And probably when you look around you, maybe your papa said was one time a civil servant and he's old and he have nothing to show for it. Then as a human being first that you are, a part of you just loses interest and all the zeal to keep fighting for good governance, keep fighting for anything good that will come out of this country. And if you have been somebody who, probably your opportunity to travel out of this country, you will tell yourself the honest truth. There is absolutely nothing to fight for this country, because these people travel a lot. They see other countries, they see the good roads, they see the lights, they see hospitals, they see educational system. Like they literally see all these things. And yet we come back here to beg for the barest minimum. Like you celebrate when you see a local government chairman building a toilet and when he's about to, is it cut those stuff they cut, you see people celebrating and you keep wondering, is are they doing you a favor? Like they make this movie. These things are not things we expect to beg for. They are building all these things with our money, not their personal money. And when I think about it, Nigerians are not greedy people. We are not even asking for too much. What we ask for is just good road, light, water, maybe education and hospital. Finish. These things are basic, basic, basic. We don't need to ask for them. I was in Malaysia a few weeks ago, and somebody said Malaysia is a third world country. And to be sincere with you, I'm still trying to relate Malaysia and Nigeria as third world country, because they are like millions. I don't know how to explain it, but these guys are, even their village is more organized than Nigerian capital. That is how I see these people. It's not like they don't have their own issues. I feel every country have their own issues, but the kind of issues they have is way, way different from the kind of issues we have. In our own country, we are still talking about food, we are still talking about election, even though election is a general problem. But then I don't feel like other countries' election and their experience is close to what we have here. Because in Nigeria, apparently, even before the election starts, you already know who will win, because you know that the person with the hardest of mind probably do the hardest of things, and of course the person is going to win. And just like the last person said something about other opponents trying to use fear and feels like, oh, your elections, your this will not count, your voting will not count, and all of that. That is true, but to be sincere, sometimes I don't feel like our vote counts. This is me being honest. And most of us going out to vote is just to fulfill all righteousness in case God decides to make the vote count. But in the sense of us being realistic and being truthful to ourselves, I'm not sure in this country that our vote counts. And this is being honest. And for the two people that said, I think we have people here, speakers, they are part of the government or maybe need to be close to the government. I think it's high time you guys started to think for ways to make things like election to be more, should I say, more transparent, because we are too backward. I don't know how to explain this. I feel like Nigeria are so, there are lots of tech products out there that you don't even need. As people are voting, we are seeing results. As people are voting, like you are okay now, they want to implement we paying tax, and all they just need is your BVN. Is it BVN or NIM? I can't remember. You will see how swift and how easy these people will make this paying of tax for everybody. You see how they will make it easy to take your money. You will see how they'll make it easy to ensure that you are not moving forward. As long as it is money entering their pocket, they will make it so easy. So why is making elections or whatever that concerns the masses, why is it very difficult for them to make it easy? You can, the same way they are using your NIM to do stuff, they can still use our NIM, is it NIM, to track our voting, to track everything, to make it transparent. As we are voting, there should be a digital footprint showing, oh, in Lagos, this local government, they are currently voting. Let's keep seeing in real time the results. They shouldn't, at this point in generation, there shouldn't be a room whereby they have to be, is it INEC representative going to the village or going to other places just to submit results. Who does that? Even common jam don't submit results anymore. You write your jam, everything is submitted online. Why is this so hard? People are voting. Why don't we have something that is digitalized? Come, you want to vote, just thumbprint, click on the profile person you want to vote and move. As you are doing that, things are displaying in real. So I just feel if we have people who have ways of getting all this kind of information across to the right source, they should be thinking of, they should be thinking, their thoughts should be on that line, because it's really depressing that people will stick their lives going out to vote, because the truth is, when you leave your house to go and vote, you sincerely do not know the outcome. You are not even sure if you are going to come back alive. And this is the honest truth. So it's not
Thank
just
you very
about
much.
us. It's not
Yeah.
just about us voting, but a lot of things are put on the line when you are going out to vote. And that is that for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. So many things to take away from your words. I mean, Nigerians will say, if you know, you know. They say, na person we wear shoe, na I know wear leg, the pin now. I mean, so many discussions from the concerns from our democracy and governance sector to the Japa syndrome, to basic amenities like water, electricity, banking system, and all of that. And one thing stood out strong for me is the level of literacy matters a lot. Alluding to the point that the previous speaker mentioned. And when we're talking about digital literacy, you can't but as well talk about media literacy as well. So the level of information that you get as a populace, what do you do with that information? So all encompassing, all encompassing. Thank you very much for that, Cynthia. So also to just mention again, some examples of misinformation. When we talk about, or back then in 2018 and even up to 2023, there was a claim around the former president Muhammadu Buhari, the late Muhammadu Buhari. You know, they said, the Jubril of Sudan, or Jubril from Sudan. They said Muhammadu Buhari had died during medical treatment in the UK and was replaced by a Sudanese body, double named Jubril. So the reality of it, I mean, the conspiracy theory circulated widely on social media for years, for years. Even people till now still believe, despite the repeated, debunking by credible sources and Buhari himself. So But so many insights, so many examples that can be cited in terms of misinformation in Nigeria, particularly. So, thank you very much to our panelists. So quickly, let's go to the second round of questions, and I will, reflect back to Yusuf. Yusuf, so my next question for you would be, I mean, I know you've walked around youth engagement, you've walked around shaping fact-based discourse around youth engagement and fact-checking with the youth communities. So my question to you would be, what role do young people, what role do you see young people play in shaping fact-based discourse? And how can we scale their impact? Because we understand clearly that the youth of our generation, they are the next phase of leadership. So we need to engage the youth right now. So what role do you think the young people play in shaping this fact-based discourse? And how can how can civil society, how can the community at large scale up the impact of the youth? Over to you, Yusuf.
All right, thank you so much, Habayomi. And like I said earlier, youth are the center of this discourse, because when we are talking about the digital technology today, if we are not acknowledge the power of the young people, I think we are just being sentiment. They are being the front of building a digital tools. And though I still believe that there's a long way to go when it's come to changing their mindset to look beyond the virality on social media, to look beyond the maybe there's a monetary value coming from their post, and begin to see how they can, use their power, the power of digital tools, the power of being a young people, their network, to create a sustainable change, to build a society that's going to be fair enough for everyone. So, and yeah, obviously, young people are also driving innovator. They are driving a different initiative. For us as I Lead Africa, I think last month we launched Civic Party AI, which basically on civic education. It's a one-stop shop that actually educates the citizen on their civic rights. Talking about the election, talking about the action they can take in their community, how they can hold their leader accountable. And beyond that, the platform also, bridge the gap between those platforms we have been mentioning. We have tracker from the budget, we have follow the money from codes, legitimacy, 360. We have I monitor parliament tracker. People need to know about this, and that's the purpose of that civic party AI. When you get to this platform, you can have access to them, to all those two at your own pace. So, and I believe that, like I said earlier, we need to put more effort in changing their mind, empowering their mind to look beyond the what they are gaining to themselves, and begin to build an initiative that's going to work for the society. And something that go along that is we need to be intentional in first in digital literacy. Digital literacy for people to know, first acknowledge that they have the right to use the digital tools. And for that right, you are not also allowed to use your right to conflict or affect the other person's right. So when we invest in the digital literacy, how you can be safe online, and how you can also protect other rights online. You cannot say because you have the right to freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and you are be saying what is not right about me, about my personality. We need to be intentional about that. Another thing that go along with that is we need to see them as a partner, as a civic actor, not as the end users or the beneficiary or the victim. So oftentimes when we are building the solutions, especially in civic space, and it's also common in from the government, we excluded this geographical set. The young people need to be part of decision making. They need to be part of what you are building. You need to look at how it's going to affect them and how they are going to contribute to it largely. This has been one of the methods that we take critically, involving them in part of our activities, part of our project, and also sit them down to get the feedback from them. Because let's not forget, they have the largest population in Nigeria. And for that fact, it shows that whatever they get involved in, we get to have a quick outcome on it, because if they use their population, if they use their number, and they use their initiative, because look at the most of the initiative we are talking about since morning. If you check behind the scene of those platforms, it's built by the young people and driven by the young people. So we need to see them not only not as the victim that they are just there to create nuisance or making noise online, and begin to engage them. When we intentionally engage the young people, we can see the change that we are actually claiming for. And finally, the young people need to look beyond the present and think about their future and the future they are creating for the incoming generation. So it is high time for us as young people, to not only whatever we are doing, whatever the efforts we are making, whatever initiative we are building, we begin to not think about ourselves alone. We begin to take in consideration our community. How does that affect your community positively? And what are the negative sides, and how you can mitigate those negativities? So if we take note of it, we see the young people as a key stakeholder, and a civic actor on any project coming from the civil society organization or the government. And also, we create a platform for them, for dialogue, for policy discussion, for involvement. They feel the part. I think it's Samuel that mentioned that, citizens they feel left out from the governance, and that is why we're having this issue. The breach of trust from the citizens to the government is give a lot of room and opportunity for those that want to use that opportunity to create misinformation and disinformation. Because initially, there's a lack of trust, and any information coming, whether it is right or wrong, they will just accept it because they don't even believe from the government, from the outside. So if we use this opportunity, creating platform, enabling environment for them to engage directly in governance, to build that trust, I believe, the young people are amazing tools in fighting this the dynamic of disinformation and fake news. And I believe if we leverage on their network, their initiative, their power, most especially in Africa, we will end this and put an end to the fake news and disinformation, misinformation in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yusuf. I could see the passion from your tone in terms of getting the youths engaged, You rightly said something that struck me, very well. You said we should see the youths as paddlers and not end users of this thing. So well said. You also mentioned that the youths has the largest population. They have the largest demographic in Nigeria. And I've come to realize that, there is power in numbers, right? Putting into consideration the NSAS movement, the End Bad Governance movement in Nigeria, we could see the level of power that was generated during this time and during this period, where the youths led a whole lot of advocacy and all during that period. So yes, rightly said, the youths are critical stakeholders in this discourse, and we should not push them away from this discourse and try as much as possible to scale up their impact. Thank you very much for that, Yusuf. Quickly, I'm going to my next speaker, Lois. Lois, my question to you would be, you're working in Dubawa, you've done a whole lot of fact-checking. So how can fact-checking organizations collaborate within this space, right? How can this fact-checking organization collaborate with civil society organizations as well to amplify truths and to counter disinformation and misinformation and also falsehood? Over to you, Lois.
All right, thank you very much, Abayomi. Like we've all been hitting on since collaboration is important. How do we collaborate? I think it was Yusuf that mentioned how there are individual isolated efforts and how we need to come together. First of all, we need to do a lot of monitoring and information sharing, studies. Dubawa Didac, we produce a lot of pre-election and post-election articles, researches, investigations that should inform researches and tools that we need to either upgrade or create new ones. Now, if there's that monitoring and information sharing going on between the media, the civil society, and other partners and tech, those who create these tools, it will be easier to know which area to focus on or which area needs to be revamped. I'll give you an example. So Google has a way of getting feedback from fact checkers and organizations on their tools like the Google reverse image search because we found out that back in 2020 there were features that were helpful, but after a year or two they were no longer helpful. So there's a system communication channel to return, oh, this new feature is helpful, this is not. I think we need to have that communication line, not just collaborating per se in quotes, but there should be that monitoring and whatever it is you're doing in your sect, we should be able to share that information. Whatever the civil society is doing in their own sect, they should be able to share that information. So this would also help conversations and drive policy decision making. I also think we need to also help with even this tool testing. So sometimes what we've seen with tools development is that we develop a tool, there isn't proper pre-testing. You're not testing it with the right people that are going to be using those tools. You're creating a tool for a fact checker to debunk claims. And in the whole of that process, the fact checker was not involved in the process of testing that tools. It's not going to make it as effective as it should be. And sometimes if the tools are already there, we want to find strategic points to work with fact checkers to use these tools, and then that can also inform future actions or inactions. I'll give an example. During the 2023 general election, the Fact Checkers Coalition, Nigerian Fact Checkers Coalition, worked with Full Fact, which has a platform like Google Trends that monitors conversations during the election day and the days the lead up to the election and after. And we were able to use that to help our claim sourcing. So rather than scamping through social media and doing all of that and trying to get where the claims are coming from, you can just have like a summary of what the conversation is like today or what it has been in the last 1 hour and all of that. That's one way we can collaborate. What's your tool doing? What's the fact-checking process like on election day? Or because we know that there are so many claims. I think someone mentioned about how before you verify this, another one is already there. So we need to prioritize which claims to verify. So when we have those kind of collaborations, it will ease our work and increase our outputs and make it more effective because we've also seen that most of the times during elections, when the things are trending, the fact checks do not come out to debunk them in time, and the people already run with that narrative. It has influenced decision making before the checks come out and all of that. So that's another way I believe that we can effectively collaborate. Another way is impact tracking. Whether it is WACSI that has done the research, I have referenced that research, I'm hyperlinking that research, I'm putting up a discussion and I'm bringing, if it's something that has to do with tools around this information, I want to bring on organizations who have developed one tool or another on that to have that conversation. That way we are having richer conversations that would impact or influence people. Then there's also the media and information literacy. As much as we do our individual thing, civil societies will do theirs and all of that. We can come together and create a body of research or courses for secondary schools, primary schools. I mean, we talk about the youth as the demography to work with. Other countries are already making sure and imbibing this into their curriculum, but we are still slacking on that because one thing we talked about trust. We live in a trust economy, and in Nigeria, that trust economy has been broken, and we are not making conscious effort to rebuild that. And this is the fastest way to build it, working from primary schools, the secondary schools. It could be games that they could just play, fiddle with, and in that game, it's teaching them critical thinking. Where do we get information? What should I look out? Are the clues to look out for to know that this content is not genuine or not? You are building their critical mind, and that is what every human being, which is who is living in this information age needs. And so we don't wait for them to grow to full adults, come to the information space, and then they're grappling with what to do and what not to do. And then we build people who are even curious to be able to solve problems from their own perspective. You're solving, we have 50, 30, 40-year-olds solving problems for 15 to 20-year-olds on TikTok and all of that. They are in this space better. They know the issues that trend there. They know how their mates or their like minds think, and they can provide this solution better. And so we need to stop working at isolation and coming together. When we produce fact checks, we can also do reviews or have conversations of the fact checks. Or another thing we have tried to do in the last Ghana election, we also had the Ghana Fact Checkers Coalition, where we had presentations of our findings from the election, what were the trends before the election, who were the actors. We identified disinformation actors, that's those who were sending or posting narratives, false narrative, misleading narratives, those who were actively trying to tarnish one actor over another or one party over another. Being able to map all of that, we were able to drive conversation months after the elections and even bring about solutions from organization, from the institutions, the electoral body, and all of that. So being able to harness, put together what efforts we are doing during whatever phase of election or an issue would help us also drive conversations going forward and help implementation. Um, I'll also talk about investing in fact-checking training and media and information literacy. These disinformation actors are investing heavily. If you look at some of these post-election, like the US, even the 2019 election and 2023 elections, where we see how the election narrative or communication was influenced online and offline, you will see that a lot of budget went into this. I know funding is a thing for us, but we can also look into private businesses that are willing to fund this, tech institutions that are willing to provide their expertise without payment, to be able to also create and invest in this. It's a major investment that we cannot overlook. So this collaboration basically between media platforms or fact-checking organizations, within tech organizations who are creating these tools, CSOs who are driving policy conversations and doing a lot of the work and keeping the statistics and holding public institutions and officers to account, and the citizens. We cannot push out the citizens from this circle of collaboration. Um, at at the end of it, everyone has a role to play because one way or the other, we are affected by this phenomenon called misinformation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lois. Everyone has a role to play, both civil society, both the governments, both the communities, everyone has a role to play. Well said. Collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. We would always emphasize that word, collaboration. And you also mentioned something that also will stay with me in terms of prioritizing which claims to verify. And as well, civil society and fact-checking organizations should stop working in silos. That is one major problem we've encountered over and over and over and over again. People not wanting to release information, people holding information, organizations saying, no, this is me. I don't want to give this information out. But I'm very sure participants listening now are, taking good note of all of this. And also you mentioned media and information literacy in terms of fact-checking trainings. I'm very spot on there, very spot on. Thank you very much, Lois, for adding that to the points. So I'm going over to Samuel. And my question to Samuel, let's move a little bit to the policy aspect and the legislative angle of things. So Samuel, what role can open data legislative transparency, what role can that play in reducing misinformation in terms of having access to open data? How can that reduce misinformation being spread across Nigeria? Over to you, Samuel.
Oh, okay. I mean, a lot has been said on data, on access, on even in fact misinformation. But the question you just asked is very pivotal to the work that we do on our legislative engagement and legislative intelligence angle and area of our work. And what you asked, I think we are even the best place to answer you because we have practical testimonies around that area. So the role of open data, I think if you look at the history of the assembly, for instance, since the first assembly, you've never had a data that a platform or you can't walk into the assembly and request for data. If we ask most people, who are the people that constitute the eighth assembly, a lot of people would have forgotten who represented them in the eighth assembly, and that is where open data comes in. Because if you look at the trajectory, even now we cannot even lay our hands, and there are faces to this thing. So, and I'm going to discuss it first as from the angle of the legislature, secondly, from the angle of citizens. And we are also going to look at how are we preserving institutional memory in terms of open data? And also, how are we using this institutional memory to engage with the presence? Because if we don't know where we are coming from, how do we know where we are going to? And that is where open data comes to play. So for instance, we are looking at archiving records from the very first assembly, that's the Fourth Republic. And we can't tell, we don't have anywhere where we say, okay, where is this data? Where is it coming from? Okay, when did we even start discussing issues of women inclusion and women participation in the legislature? Is this reserve seat bill that has been in circulation lately? Is this the first time we are making that request on the floor of the House? But because there is no open data, there is nowhere to check how long has this issue been on the front burner. So you tend to see our politicians making the same promises they've been making since they've been in parliament, since they were first elected. That is the same manifesto they keep bringing, because you don't have history, you don't have data to say, but you promised us this in the last 3 elections. Why are you still promising us this when you've not even done it? Why should we vote for you? And that is where open data comes in. With the work we do at Legis 360, for now, we've been able to digitize over 3,000 records within the 10th Assembly. And what that has done for us and for citizens, imagine we launched our legislative intelligence platform in April, and we are currently averaging over 1,500 users and over 300 returning users month on month, which tells you the impact of having access to information. Before you get a bill within the assembly, you have to either know the sponsor of the bill or the organization pushing the bill. Then if you don't know those tools, you have to now go and learn it that with the platform that we've built with Legis 360, we've built in a platform where you don't even have to know a certain bill that you are looking for. You have to go to the platform. If you're monitoring issues around women, for instance, or about youth participation or technology, artificial intelligence, you go and you can search, there's a category, you can search, what is this? Then you find that bill. Once you find that bill, you can see the progression of the bill. At what stage, when was this bill introduced? If it was introduced in 2023, you now begin to ask questions, because that data has now enabled you to ask questions to say, why has this important bill? Let's take one bill that is very important to the youth now. There's a bill on the floor of the House since 2023 that is looking to provide free internet access in public places for people. And that kind of bill has been on the floor of the House. Those are the kind of bills youth are supposed to take up and say, no, this will increase digital access. This will improve the digital divide. Because if I know I have internet access in parks, I saw that states like Osun just launched the Imole Wi-Fi that is available in malls and public places. You can see. So, and that now, because those kind of laws now back, because in 2022, 2020, 5 years ago, state governors signed up to give right of ways to technology and telecoms companies to be able to drive internet penetrations within states. But this is 5 years after, and I can tell you, it is only 5 states that has committed to that agreement, which is states like Anambra, Kaduna, and the likes that have committed to that agreement. But because we also don't have information, we don't know, we don't have open data where this data are in repository. We cannot even question it. We don't even know the people that sign up to those agreements. We don't know where we can now say, but you signed up to this, why didn't you follow it up? Why didn't you follow it up through? So that is the access. But as I was talking about the legislator, so in those kind of bills, we can now say, the question now is it enough to know there is a bill on the floor of the house? Is it enough to know when it passed first reading, second reading? But for a lot of Nigerians, we now said with the power of artificial intelligence, what if I am not a lawyer? What if I am not a policy expert? I don't know how these bills are being constructed. I don't know the legal jargons. But we now created the Bill Analyzer AI embedded within the legislative intelligence platform, where you can copy the content of this bill, paste it within the AI, and it can provide you 5 types of analysis, which is first provide you the key provisions of that bill, give you the operational and fiscal impact that that bill might have, give you the legal implications that that bill might have against the Constitution. What are the concerns? Did it deviate from the Constitution? But most importantly, it gives you a comparative analysis as to where those kind of laws exist in any other part of the world and what are the implications, what are the lessons then that you learn. So imagine you sitting in a room, such issues is being discussed, then you have access to platforms like Legis 360, and you don't even know about that issue first, but you could go to Legis 360 and in 5 minutes, you can speak about the issue from an informed position. That is the power of open data. If I'm looking for maybe I'm talking to a local government chairman, for instance, and I don't even know how much has been disbursed to him, and the people are complaining. Our roads are bad, the roads in the street are bad, there are potholes. We cannot use this mini bridge to connect from Araromi village to another village. And you don't know, you can go on platforms like budget tracker and look at how federal allocations have been disbursed to that particular local government. That is the power of open data. It enables citizens to query directly, to question the leaders that are in power.
I think someone was, trying to, outline the importance of open data and also, as he rightly said, enabling citizens, to query directly and holding their leaders accountable. Thank you very much, Samuel. I know your internet just stripped off, but it will be good to have you back. I know you had a final thoughts to outline there, but if you are back, please, you can kindly notify so I can yield you the floor to have your final note on that. But thank you very much for that point. In terms of the legislature, the citizenry, and institutional memory, open data is very important, and we cannot but talk about information, how information is being passed across to the citizens, and that is open data in particular. So quickly, let me move to my next speaker, Cynthia. Let's go a little bit techie a little bit now. So Cynthia, you are the founder of Digital Witch Support Community. So let's speak to the marginalized groups. How can technology, right, uh, empower women and marginalized group to become champions of truths online? Because most of this news that are being passed across, this misinformation that we say, they're mostly passed across through social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, X, which is Twitter, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, which is now paving the way for all social media channels now. And if you look at the demography that uses this social media channels, they are mostly the youths, right? So in terms of marginalized groups, talking about women, youths, even persons living with disabilities, and even the internally displaced persons, how can technology communities empower these marginalized groups to become champions of truths when speaking online or when sharing informations online. Over to you, Cynthia.
Okay. Okay, so basically, I would rather say that I'm coming from that background myself, having studied, I studied literature in school, and as someone that studied literature in school, probably know that normally I shouldn't have any business doing anything tech. And I also grew up in the village, meaning that like in all you just like I'm just a depictor of what you said. But then one thing first is making skills available for everyone. And not just skills, there's this level of confidence that come when you know that you can always have something to fall back on. There are lots of people that it's not like they are not aware of how to handle things or how to, lead their own voice. But how can you be leading your voice when you work in the bank? When you work in all those TV stations, when you work in all those government parastatals, it simply means that you are not just leading your voice, but you are putting your your work at risk. And when your work is at risk, everybody around you, your family, your other businesses probably suffer. So you would rather choose to remain calm and focus on how to, survive with whatever is available. So for me, I think they should just create an enabling environment whereby people can be able to learn skills. And, when you are empowered, there's this level of confidence that comes with when you know that your next meal is not dependent on anyone, it's not dependent on you working in the bank, it's not dependent on you working in any government parastatals. Like, you know that with the skills you have, you can look beyond Nigerian labor market. If nobody wants to hire you within the Nigerian labor market, of course, with your skills, you can be able to compete internationally and also be able to get remote job. So basically, when I started my community, my focus was just women, first of all, how did I even get started? I read this hide my ID. That sometimes people write all those hide my ID posts, and this woman was complaining about her husband. She keeps saying something that the only reason why she's still staying in this marriage is because she cannot take care of herself, she cannot take care of her children, and that she can't even see or talk to her parents, that the husband just made it look like she's not allowed to have friends or to go out. And when I read that post that very morning, I was like, then I was already working full-time remotely. And I keep asking myself, because apart from the fact I studied literature, I also did a degree in education. And I kept asking myself, this thing I'm doing, people can actually do this. So women, especially women, they can do this and be able to earn, even if your husband is not allowing you to go out, they want you to stay at home, take care of kids and marginalize you and all of that. But, I can actually teach this thing I'm doing and empower women. And that was how I made the post on Facebook. A lot of people showed interest. And at the end of the day, we started. And the first set of women I trained, gradually they started getting jobs, and that kind of blew the whole thing up. Now, most of these women that started the community with me, when I try to compare how they carry themselves now and how they were when we started, it's like if I'm looking at a completely different person. Most of them have relocated to the UK, Canada, and all of that. And those in Nigeria, when I see them, because it was then we were few, then we were like 30 something students, but at the moment you have like 3,000 plus monthly. So then we're very few, and that kind of creates a room for proper networking and mentorship. So when I get to see how they live their life, the confidence in which they speak, we know that money also gives some level of confidence on its own. When you have your own money and when you know that the source of your income is not tied to the mercy of Nigerian government, it's not, even though somehow Nigerian government can also, twerk one or two things that will affect freelancers, but to some extent, you know that you can say what you want to say with your full chest, knowing fully whether you're not going to any office tomorrow to answer queries or get any things like that. Then another thing is, in as much as those of us internship are opportune to have access to internet, have access to good gadgets. I also feel that the government can do better by ensuring that the rural areas also get a bit of opportunities by those in seats trying to empower their youth. When you go to a lot of communities, you notice that people graduate from secondary school and that's the end. It's not like they have enough farmland to accommodate everyone, or they have enough other skills to accommodate everybody. And even if they have a lot of skill to accommodate, at least they need to be taught, like, maybe carpentry and the rest of it. But then they are just wallowing and wandering their villages, no proper support, no proper means of sustenance. And these people also have the grassroots politicians. And these grassroots politicians, instead of them finding ways to support these youth, what do? They would rather find ways to keep them at their lowest, to ensure that they would still be the weapon they will use during their elections, because if you are very poor and somehow during an election, somebody offers you 10,000 naira or 20,000 naira, that is a lot of money. And of course, you'll be happy to blow your whistles alongside, singing their praise and all of that. And these are youth, which when you empower them, you are not just helping yourself, you're not just helping the community, but you are also creating potential capitals that can also sustain the next generation. Like in my community, I kind of made it should I say an annual thing or a quarterly thing, in which those people that were able to just graduate from secondary school, there's no hope for them going to university and all of that. I try to empower those that really want to do something with their life, and those that are interested in what I'm doing, I try to also add them to the training. And so somehow, so far, many of them are beginning to, learn. And once they start earning, the next thing is to move into the city, not just a big city, just something way better than village lifestyle. And when before you know it, this kind of people, they also start seeing the light, seeing what is happening, and also contributing to the whole discourse. Oh, politics. Because if you're in the village, we don't know. It's not like we don't know politics in the village. What we know is who is your leader, who is the right, or your village chief probably have collected a lot of money and came to the village town hall, wherever, and announced that this is the best person. To be sincere, the people voting don't know who is the best person. So, but because the village chief said that this person is the best person, everybody we sheepishly queue behind that person. But if the government can make things available, like good gadgets. I think there was an article I read a few weeks back whereby a particular body is sponsoring is it digital schools. And somehow these digital schools were built, but nobody is using them. They just use that uh program to siphon a lot of money. And at the end of the day, they just lock the whole laptops, the whole lab, they lock all the schools up. Students are not using it. There is no teacher, nobody. The whole laptops or whatever is in the lab are just, you know, rusting away. But these are some of the things that we can use to empower the youth, get them equipped with informations and all of that. Because at the end of the day, making the society better is a shared responsibility. Not as much as we are trying to blame the government, we as the masses also have our own role to play. We as the youth also have our own role, because sometimes I also see people who try to empower the youth, and at the end of the day, the youth will still do what they want to do, which is totally different from what the initial support was meant for. But like I keep saying, when each time I try to blame the masses, I keep asking myself, when you go to other countries, you see how they keep the whole place neat. And when you go to other countries and you buy a bottle of water, and when you look around you, you see how the whole place is, clean, everywhere is kept neat, well swept, and all of that. You will never see yourself loitering the environment with your bottle of water. Even if you want to spit, sometimes you have to swallow this because the place is just too clean for you to spit, right? And for your bottled water, you see yourself carrying that bottled water along until you're able to cite a bin where you can deposit it. And I feel we that do this when we travel are still Nigerians. So if there are policies put in place in Nigeria that you are not expected to do this or do that or do this, and it is enforced, to be sincere with you, we are all going to adjust. But I feel there are nothing, we sometimes most of these things are just on papers, or maybe the rules are being made just for the poor masses. The other bigger guys, they do whatever they want. And of course, we are always following the footsteps of our leader. When they say my village, they say that when a mother goat or goat is chewing, there's something they say when the goat is chewing, the children will be looking at the mouth. So when you that we're all looking up to is not living up to the expectation, there is nothing you expect us to do. Sometimes you see people, one road is blocked, but you see the government trying to do, is it one way or whatever, right? And you keep wondering, aren't all of us supposed to be on this way? Why is the other people following the other way? And these are some questions that keep bothering people like me. And I feel like the government have a lot to do. And if they're able to come up with policies that support the youth, support women, in women, our own case is really totally different because society have always find ways to suppress us in all corners. There's a lot of cultural differences, cultures that also subjugate women. As a woman, you from your family, sometimes they make you think, oh, your whole existence is to be a mother, and not just to be a mother, is to be a wife and all of that. And somehow, unconsciously, you start living like that. Then when you finally get married, some husbands find it difficult to support you as a woman. They end up making you feel like this is a competition. If you as a woman is about to earn more money, they see it as a competition of you being supported. The society is not providing you with the needed support. Then the people that you felt like you should be safe around, or they should be one providing support, they don't also support you because they feel threatened by your success. But these are some of the things that I feel women who have already made it, there are a lot of women out there that most of them are successful wives, they are successful women in their career path, they are successful mothers. And I felt like this kind of people, they don't talk about it enough. Because if there is a way people that are really successful as a woman all around comes out to keep empowering other women, telling other women how they are able to achieve success being a wife, being a career woman, being a mother, and everything works out. That will also help their husbands to understand that this is not a war zone. We are all trying to be more. I can be a mother, I can be a
Yeah.
wife, I can be every other thing I want to be, and I'll still be who you want me to be. So
Mhm.
if there are lots of women who come out and keep making these things known, so that most of the time we keep feeding on the negative aspect of the whole what women should be and what women should not be. And at the end
Mm.
of the day, all these things joined together keep suppressing us as a woman in this kind of society. So
Mm.
another thing is, I don't know if we have parastatals like this. I feel like women are underrepresented in Nigeria. The few
Mm.
people who should be out there talking about women empowerment, they end up talking about their own personal empowerment. More like everything done in Nigeria is more of trying to showcase how good you are as a person, and not just how it will benefit the society. Because I know of a lot of women who are over there who should be thinking how to empower women. How do we make sure that these women are getting needed skills? They want to, or this person stop halfway, but somehow she wants to be a doctor, a tailor. Why can't we support people like that to become a tailor? Why can't we support people like this to own a business? Why can't we support this woman to become a farmer? Like, there's a lot of things that other women who are apparently in the government they should be capable of doing, but they are not doing them. Instead, everybody is just looking out for themselves. And I
Yeah.
feel that if the government are kind enough to consider the future of the country, more like, of
Mm.
course, women, at the end of the day, women spend more time with their children, and when you spend more time with your children or with your child, it somehow shows in the way they behave, the way they act, the way, they do a lot of stuff on the society. So, but if your mother is empowered, it also helps in them empowering their children, both their girl child or their male child.
Mhm.
But for
Mhm.
me, I think I'm the first empowered person in my family. And because I'm the first empowered person in my family, it's already showing the lives of my siblings. Meaning, if
Mhm.
my mom was empowered, probably, maybe my own empowerment should have come long before now, right?
Mhm.
Then for
Mhm.
the youth, I don't, sometimes when things come, when it's about the youth, I just lack words because like, a lot of Nigerian youths are trying. Like we are really, really doing our best. If you go to TikTok or you go to X and listen to people talk, there are some discourse that will be going on X. I don't even get to drop a comment, but when I read what our youth are doing, you agree with me that the youth are doing their best. But this is Nigeria, whereby every policies are always targeted at making sure that your efforts are not being as productive as expected. But to be
Yeah.
sincere, the youth are doing well.
So Cynthia, on a final note, I know you've outlined a couple of things that needs to be pushed to the marginalized groups. So on a final note, how can they be strengthened to become champions of truth? Because I hear you say the youth do a lot on TikTok, on Instagram, and all of that. How then can we champion this cause for them to become champions of truth, for them to share facts and not mislead the communities? How then
Okay,
can that be entrenched?
first of all, this kind of discourse is one way of championing that.
Hmm.
If you can make this kind of program to be more encompassing, I can see we just have 80 plus, but if you can make it more encompassing, where a lot of people also join to listen to people like you talk. Secondly, making, trying to make somebody to be a champion of truth is a mirage word. Do you know why? You cannot force me to be telling the truth when my life is at the hanger or at the mercy of the government. That is just you overstepping. And this is me being honest with you. It's not like
Hmm.
the youth don't know how to say the truth or they don't know what, but how will you be saying the truth whereby you you will see yourself in the scene of the whole thing happening. But the next minute you are looking at your TV and what they are reporting is totally different. Meaning some sometimes we also have to be realistic. The youth want to say the truth, but are you also making the environment conducive for them to say the truth? So it's not just about the youth, it's the environment being
Hmm.
enabling enough for a youth to say the truth. Now we have our gadgets. Sometimes we also try to fight evils, you see it, you say it, do a lot just to ensure that the right things are being done. But at the end of the day, those same people that you are trying to even fight for, we make it look like your fight is a waste of your own time. Because sometimes
Hmm.
I feel there are a lot of youths, the ones that have the willpower, they have the phones, they have the internet. Most of these people, they really do not have a lot of problem because most of them are doing well for themselves, but they still let their voices.
Hmm.
But those they are letting their voices for most of the time, they make it look like we are okay. Why are you fighting? Do you understand? So even because sometimes when I go on X, I see the youth, those that are not even in Nigeria, those ones are in a Sena climb trying to fight for us over here. But we over here, we make everything looks like it's tribalistic induced, is religious induced war, is location
Yeah.
induced war. We just tribalize everything and that
Right.
kind of lose the whole essence. So for
Thank
me,
you.
the
Thank
environment
you.
is the problem. Me
Thank
self,
you
I'm
very
scared.
much.
Not be every truth I want to talk and no
Now,
lie.
so thank you very much, Cynthia, for that. Oh, so much to take in, so much to take in. Thank you for that. I can see the passion from your tone in terms of including the marginalized group, the women. You've spoken about the women, you've spoken about the youths, with so much passion. Thank you very much for that. Because of our time, we have just few more minutes to end this session. Um, so please, we're going to be opening the floor now for questions. If you have questions, I'm sure the team in charge or in control of the discussion would perhaps open the floor now. Perhaps you can raise your hand, then we would highlight you so you can ask your questions, or perhaps if you have contributions, you can put it in the chat box. And I have a couple of contributions already in the chat box. But before I read some of the contributions in the chat box, let me just highlight this final example of misinformation that's really struck many Nigerians in terms of the fake death toll at the Lekki toll gates, right? There were claims that there were viral posts alleged that hundreds of protesters were killed at Lekki toll gates on October 2020 during the NSAS movement. While in reality, right, while the Amnesty International confirmed fatalities, right, the exaggerated figures, in terms of the thousands, were false and fueled panic. So this were some insights that sprung up the level of violence, because misinformation can as well lead to violence. So things like that could result into civil unrest, which some of our speakers has alluded to. But just to put in another context, that this is the right time, right, to tackle such notions and to ensure that we bring down as much as possible, we reduce the level of misinformation and disinformation and fake news that is being spread out there. I have a couple of hands up here, and before I take that, I think let me quickly read some comments. From Patricia, she said, we have weak institutions, and these institutions are not accountable to the people, but are loyal to the politicians or political party that appointed them. And so they put out misinformation, disinformation to protect their jobs. Yes, of course. One of our speakers rightly mentioned that as well. So quickly, let's have, I can see two hands up. So the first person on my list here is Mark Nwadioha. So Mark, you can go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to ask a question while also making a contribution. One of the speakers made mention of tools which we can access. I mean, like the Google forms and Google tools which we can access, which youth can access, and that will be useful for them. But how often, I want to ask how often we can make those, we can create awareness for the youth to know that there are some tools that they can access which can make their work to be easy. I want to say this because most of these youth, they are still living in the analog age. I mean, some of them don't even know that they can access tools in Google and other social media platforms which they can use to work. So how often can we that know that we can access these tools, can we, create awareness for these tools so that the youth can know that they have something that they can work on? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mark. That is noted. So let's quickly take the second question before we throw it back to the panelists. So we have Abdul Razak Abubakar.
So good morning once again. Yeah, my name is Abubakar Abdul Razak from Ghana, and this discussion is very interesting and important to the youth, especially. My question was the misinformation. Is it that you can't track those people who are putting that information out there, or we have a weak institutions? Because misinformation is like a killer disease. Something that, like one of the speakers was saying, that we have victims of those misinformations. And I think you should get, consequences for those people who put those information out. Well, if you just put something out that can kill somebody and you walk out scot-free, I think it's very worrying. Because what you put out there is something that is going to hurt somebody. Meanwhile, the one who put it there is just walking freely. So I think if you can strengthen our institutions to take care of that, I think it will be very helpful.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you very much, Abdulrazak. So that's question number two. Thank you very much. So quickly, let's address the first two questions, then I'll come to the next question. Kenneth, I see your hand, so please hold on. So the first question is around the tools. And I know Lois mentioned when she was talking about uh, uh, the monitoring and also tracking of some of this misinformation, mentioned about Google having a way of getting feedback. So let me trade back to Lois. Lois, please, can you address the question? So the question is basically, um, how can these tools be used? That's the Google way of getting feedback. And I'm very sure that's what the person who asked the question is referring to. So over to you, Lois.
Okay, thank you very much, Bayami. For the feedback aspect, this is limited to fact checkers who are active stakeholders, but there are tools available to you. You can check online and ask tools for reverse image search that you find your Google, your TinEye, your RevEye, and the likes. There's also simple. Now we have AI tools that can help you find these tools. Before now, you would have to walk as you walk and meet experts. What tools do you use in your work? But you can simply ask any AI tool. You can ask any search engine to ask, what tool can I use to verify this is an AI video or not? And you have options to try. And the thing is, even for fact checkers, these tools are not a one answer all or one size fits all. As you play around them, you get to know what to use them for and how to use them. As simple as Google Translate can help you tell the context of a post that is being put up. If I'm not from Kenya and there's a post up in the local language and I want to understand the context before resharing, just pick up the text and enter it into Google Translate and you will get to understand what the text is about and what the context of the picture of the video you're looking at is about. So it's just curiosity basically would help us find our way around those tools.
Thank you very much, Lois. I think that answers the first question. So the second question, I don't know if any other panelist wants to pick this up, is in terms of how can the people who post this misinformation, how can they be tracked in terms of
Okay.
tracking these people?
Uh,
I don't know if
can
any
say
panelists.
something like that?
Uh, okay, Lois, you can go ahead.
All right.
Okay,
So I
yeah, after
mentioned
Lois.
um
Yeah.
some similar work we did in the Ghana election where we were tracking people behind these accounts who were pushing out narratives either against the incumbent or either against those who are coming in and all of that. You can do that tracking. It's called OSINT investigations, right? People put out public data. When you sign up on Facebook, you put out your name, your phone numbers, and all of that. We can track that using different tools. But we cannot do beyond tracking them. We track them, we provide our reports and our findings to the government. They have institutions, they have the legal framework to take action against these persons. And we've seen when they are willing to, they know how to. But when they are not willing to, then they act like they don't know how to. But then our task would stop at tracing and finding these coordinated individuals who are driving these false narratives, either during election, during a protest, and all of that, and present our findings. And it's up to them to take up this and take action.
Thank you very much, Lois. Over to you, Samuel.
Yes, to directly answer that question, yeah, and Lois has touched upon it. It is not the problem is not finding these perpetrators. It's the enforcement of the laws that is supposed to punish them and make sure that there are consequences for engaging in such form. But additionally, with the advent of technology, you've also seen where the use of bots and artificial intelligence are now on the increase. So most of these things are now being automated. We've seen in the case of technology facilitated harassment, you post something as a lady of interest that they are targeting, and in 5 minutes, you're already seeing about 108 speeches around it. And these are not done by now people. It is now done through server farms, through coordinated hosts. So this these perpetrators are increasingly finding new ways to new ways to carry out these activities that doesn't tie them to IPs or that doesn't tie them to locations. So we also have to, and that is why funding for this work needs to be strengthened. And the funding cuts around that happened earlier in the year really affected a lot of initiatives that are built to tackle this, because perpetrators are investing heavily in this thing. That is one truth we have to constantly tell her no, because some of these solutions are not cheap, and you don't for us to be able to fight them effectively as civil society actors, we also need funding to be able to do the work. So it is actually a bit of a dilemma. Yes, we can get some of these people, we can track them, we can ping their locations and know where they are done. But also, what is the political will behind persecuting these people? And he also now tells you who are the actors behind it, what are the powers behind some of these things. So I think that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Samuel. Thank you for that. So quickly, let's go to, I can see two answers. These are the last round of questions I'll be taking. So Kenneth, please, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
Mine is
afternoon.
in the way of a contribution, not even a question. I think
Okay.
that there will, in the presence of genuine information, there will always be fake information. And I think the best way to combat misinformation really will be to have a standard, a flag bearer of what is the right information. The way we have Human Rights Watch, the way we have advocates for human rights in the area of enforcing fundamental rights, if we can also have network of, let's call it information watch, any time, who are not alive. These people are not like the mainstream media, not affiliated, cannot be bought. Just a network of people who are only out to be like a watch over information, over misinformation, and hold our leaders to account. And when we have such a network of allies, whatever we present is the standard, is the flag bearer of information. So when we have a standard, it's easy for fake for people making misrepresentations to fall off. Because once it is said that what has this particular platform said, this is what they say, because they are known to be refutable. They are not some mainstream newspaper or mainstream media organization that can be bought or anything. So such network will help us a lot in this country as
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kenneth. Thank you very much, Kenneth, for that thoughtful contribution. I mean, well said. Thank you very much for that. So thank you very much, everyone. So before we close, I just have a few remarks. So on behalf of the West Africa Civil Society Institute, WACSI, Node Nigeria, and also the WACPODIS community, we want to thank everyone for spending their time and their attention and the curiosity with us today. Such an insightful conversation. The conversation we had today was building trust in the age of misinformation, that civil society's role in shaping fact-based public discourse in Nigeria. This word or this slogan, it's not just a slogan, so to say. It's a shared responsibility and a daily practice. Just like one of our speakers said, everyone has work to do, right? So first of all, let me appreciate our panelists with those beautiful insights, grounded this conversation in real-world experiences, right? And practical pathways that we could forge further and ahead of. First, Mr. Yusuf of iLead Africa, thank you very much for joining the session. Lois Ubede from Dubawa, thank you very much. Samuel Florishaw from Legis 360. Thank you very much. And Cynthia, okay, founder of Digital Witch Support Community. We say thank you for your clarity and your honest commitment to this. So, to all listeners, here are 4 takeaways that we travel with, maybe not you, but with me from this conversation, from today's dialogue. Number one is that trust is built by habits, right? And not headlines. Number two is we need an evidence infrastructure and not just to fact check, right? The third one for me is that digital literacy must be inclusive by design. Because if you are not informed, if you don't know what ABC is, you definitely cannot counter it, obviously. Then final for me is collaboration. Collaboration beats virality, right? No single actor can outspace misinformation alone. Every organization has to come, organizations don't need to work in silos. There's a need for shared knowledge, right? So to our partners in government and other parastatals, today's conversation is also an invitation, right? Regulation that protects rights while encouraging transparency. Platform tooling that elevates authoritative content and open by default public information are not nice to have, right? They are our democratic infrastructure. To every participant, ability is your greatest asset, right? So before you forward that message, I think there are a couple of questions that you need to ask. Number one, who said this? What evidence supports this? What would change my mind in regards to this information to be shared? When we normalize these questions, we normalize accountability. So as we close, I want to recognize, the quiet work of, some people on the ground, the frontline educators, teaching media literacies, the data analysts, opening, dusty PDFs and opening, giving us insights to data, and also the community organizers, translating complex issues into local languages. And last, the people I want to acknowledge are the fact checkers, right? Who spend hours to verify what took seconds to fabricate, because it just takes few seconds to fabricate and come up with a fabricated story about something. But with great recognition to the fact checkers who spend hours to just verify this news. Your work is not just defensive, but it is as well nation building. So thank you to everyone who has taken out their time to participate in this conversation, to our panelists, our organizers, our tech team behind the scene at WACSI, and to each of you for choosing truth over convenience. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing everyone in the next episode of the WACPODIS series dialogue. Thank you, have a great day, and see you at the next episode. Bye bye from my hand.